So my name's Andrew Kirby, and by the age of 21, I saved $100,000. And now at the age of 22, I've saved more than 4 times that amount. And this video will be explaining the 8 tips as to how I did that. I've talked a lot recently about income and increasing your income, which is an important part of the equation. And by the way, you guys are loving those videos, which is really cool to see. But in this video, I just want to talk about the second part of the equation, reducing expenses. Because what happens for most people is something I like to call lifestyle inflation, where even if your income increases, your spending increases at the same rate at which your income increases, which means you don't actually save any more money. So let's get into the 8 tips as to how you can avoid this. Because it's a habit that almost everybody gets into, and the scariest thing about lifestyle inflation is as soon as you start spending more money, it's really difficult to go backwards. It's easy to treat yourself to things, but as soon as you've experienced what it's like to live life at that new level of what used to be a treat for yourself, it's very difficult to go back. So what happens is over time, people's expenses increase and never come back down, which is a really scary place to be. So, the 8 tips on how you can start saving your first $100,000 and more later on. Number 1 is to start recognizing money isn't just money. It's not something you hold in your bank account. Money is freedom, and freedom is options. So the more money you have, the more options you have. If you have no money at all, then you're forced to do things that you don't want to do. You're forced to go to a job that you don't want to go to. You're forced to have a long commute. You're forced to stress about a bunch of different things that you don't want to be stressing about. If you start recognizing that you spending money is you decreasing your freedom, it makes it easier to spend less money. And the reason that you spending money decreases your freedom is because when you spend money, it means you have less options. If I have $0 in my bank account, there's not many options for me to explore with my life. That is a loud sounding bird. I'm in Australia, by the way. It's why these birds are kind of crazy. I'm not sure if you can see them. Anyway, view spending money as decreasing your freedom. So I gave you the example of $0. Now imagine someone that has $100,000 in his bank account. He has time. He can quit his job, and maybe that's a year's worth of runway for him to find a job that he prefers more. So the more money you have, the more freedom you have. And when you recognize every single time you spend money, you're giving away your freedom, it gives you more incentive to save your money instead of spending it. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to recognize that whenever you're spending money, look at where your money is going. And what you'll start to notice is that every time you spend money, you're making somebody else rich. You're saying, I don't want to be rich, and I want that person to be rich. And I know obviously we have to spend money for certain things. Even if you hate your landlord, you still have to pay rent because you need a place to live. But recognize that there are many optional things that you spend your money on that you don't have to. And by recognizing that when you're spending that money, you're making somebody else rich, it kind of makes it kind of disgusting to spend money. When I was living in Thailand for 6 months, it was really nice because I knew that pretty much every single time I spent money, it was going to somebody that needed that money more than most other people in the world needed that money, which is a really nice feeling. But also recognize if you're spending money at, say, McDonald's, look at where that money's going. It's going to some rich guy that already has enough, that's probably greedy, probably doesn't care about the health of society, which is why he's wanting to just expand McDonald's as much as possible. And again, by recognizing that every time you spend money, you're making somebody else rich, it acts as an incentive for you not to spend money. Tip number 3. A bunch of the reasons that people spend money is for status. People buy nice cars not because they want those cars, but they want to impress people that they don't even like. Why do people buy clothes, branded clothes? It's because they want to look cool. They want to look a certain way, 99% of the time. And when you see through this, when you realize that when somebody walks down the street and they're wearing Supreme, they're wearing Gucci, they're wearing Prada, they're wearing all of these really nice clothes, Balenciaga, what that person is trying to do is they're trying to look cool, probably because they feel insecure. And when you recognize that people trying to increase their status is actually low status, it once again acts as an incentive for you not to spend money on things that make you look cool. Because if somebody's trying to look cool, they're not high status. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to try to look cool, they would just be themselves. So when you see through the BS and you see why most people are spending money on status things, you actually start viewing them as low status. And when you start viewing them as low status, it makes you not want to spend money on things that you deem as looking cool or get other people to like you, because you recognize you're doing that from a low status point of view. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is actually to keep buying coffee. So in the personal finance space, I used to spend no money at all. I remember going to coffee shops with my girlfriend and I wouldn't buy a coffee because I wanted to save money, because I've been reading in blogs that you shouldn't spend money. I don't like that advice. I think that well, there's a couple problems. First of all, chances are that $3 or the £2.50 I was spending on coffee wasn't really going to make a difference. You want to focus on the main expenses that you have first and then focus on coffee later, which is normally the smaller expenses. But also, if you enjoy spending coffee, then you should buy a coffee. Like, the reason I'm recording these videos is because we all want to improve our lifestyle. We all want to live a better life. And if coffee is something for you that improves your lifestyle, you should continue to spend coffee, even if it costs some money. Because what else would you be spending that money on? It's only worth saving if later down the road you're going to spend that money on something that brings you more life satisfaction. So I don't like the advice of don't buy a coffee. I think instead you should be intentional with where you spend money. You should only spend money on things that you actually value. And if you value coffee, then buy it. If you don't value coffee, then don't buy it. Simple. Step number 5, and another thing with that is actually, you want this to be long term. Who cares about saving money this month? We want to save money for the rest of our life. I'm hopefully gonna live till I'm 100. So that's what, 78 more years left. So I want to be smart. I want to think long term. I want to think not just for 1 month. I want to think for 50 years. And if you save too frivolously, you save too strictly, then you won't end up making that change last in the long run. It'll be a short-term change, which, like everything, is just stupid. When it comes to diet, make long-term changes. When it comes to exercise, make long-term changes. When it comes to earning more money, make long-term changes. Long-term. We live in a society of instant gratification. It's insane. Everything is like boom, 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 boom. If you want food, you can press a button. It comes to your door in 20 minutes. It's crazy. Everything is so quick, but it's bad. And if we want to live the best life, not just for the next year, but for the next 80 years or however long you're going to live, average, then it's worth thinking long term. Number 5, don't always focus on saving money. The phrase that you have to spend money to earn money can be true if you spend your money on the right things. You want to be buying assets or you want to be investing in yourself. So I spent over $50,000 on online courses, and the return on investment I got for that money was massive, colossal, huge, more than 10, 20x, which is crazy to think about. So you want to spend money if it's going to earn you more money back, and especially if you're young, spending on your education is a great decision because your education compounds. It's like, I've already got a return on an investment of the $50,000 that I spent on online courses, and I still have 80 years left to live. So imagine how much of a return on investment I'll get on that money over the course of the next 80 years. But that being said, there's a lot of courses out there that you really don't want to buy, so be careful with what you buy. I made a video that you can watch up there that will give you a little bit more of an instruction on which sort of courses you should buy. Tip number 6, move country. The cost of living in Thailand for an incredible lifestyle is far cheaper than it is here in Australia, as it would be in the US, as it would be in the UK, as it would be in New Zealand and countries like that. So you can actually save a ton of money if you earn in the US or the UK or Australia and you move to Thailand. So look for remote jobs or look to serve clients in America. This is a huge life hack, and Tim Ferriss talked about this in the 4-Hour Workweek years ago. That man was so ahead of his game for recognizing this. But it's a really, really valuable tip. You can live off $1,000 in Thailand or Bali or Indonesia or Malaysia, countries like that. Even Mexico probably, and South America, I'm sure. You can live an incredible lifestyle for $1,000 a month, which means you can save a lot more money if you do that. Tip number 7, act slowly. So what happens with most people is as soon as they earn more money, there's this urge, this nagging sense to spend it. And the reason that exists is because you think that spending money will solve your problems. You think that you can spend your way to happiness. Again, as soon as you see through that BS, as soon as you recognize that spending money isn't going to make you happy, happiness is internal, not external, then again, it decreases your desire to spend money and it makes saving a lot easier. Tip number 8, track how much you earn and track how much you spend. This is what I did in business. every single expense that you have, you should be aware of, you should be conscious of, and it's worth writing them all down. And then you can track how much you earn minus from everything that you spend, and then you've got your profit. And if you continue to increase that amount, then you can save $100,000 over a period of time. And the more you earn and the less you spend, the quicker you can do it, which means the quicker you can get to freedom. Hope this was useful. Those are the 8 tips on how you can save $100,000 and more.